Spiritheory.006. God is real. Well, I have some good news. God is real. Video's objective. Within this installment, I would like to continue my talk from St.005 regarding the audience that I think would get the most benefit out of this channel. Though I would like to touch in on a certain perspective that can greatly help a person if they're ready for it. The perspective is that God is real. Wanting to believe this and knowing this to be true are two different things. Spirit Theory short proposal. Actively walking in the Holy Spirit, understanding one concept at a time. Key verse, Hebrews 11:6, ESV. And without faith, it is impossible to please Him. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who seek Him. God is real. My expectation for you, well, actually I don't need to have any big expectation for you because I'm not trying to put anything on you. Honestly, I mean, how could I? I don't even know you, and even if I did, I don't think it would be good for me to be putting anything on you. Just because I have a certain desire for the type of person that I want to talk to, people that believe God is real, doesn't mean that I'm trying to put some expectation on you. I don't expect you to believe anything. I don't expect you to believe anything of what I'm going to share here until you do end up with some kind of connection to God, where God Himself does validate Himself to you. And He will validate Himself to you when He perceives faith from you. There does seem to be a way in which He desires to connect to people. You know, and this concept of connecting to God, it can be a difficult concept to even talk about. We're going to be talking about a lot of different time frames, because connecting with God, I think, is literally one of the most important things, maybe the most important thing that a human being can do with their life. It can literally be the source of life. I'm definitely going to talk about that more later. But this connecting with God, communicating with God on a regular basis, it can be a very important thing. And there's some good ways to go about it, and there's some wrong ways to go about it. There's some pitfalls out there that people can fall into. We all have our pride. We all have our desires and emotions. You know, we can be caught up with certain ideologies and certain people. And it's like, you know, how do you separate it all? How do you come to know what is the actual truth? What is the reality of God? You know, and the key is God Himself. If by faith you can reach out to God, not of any of your own ability, not because of some level of faith or something that you have, but that you can just simply, with nothing more than your words and the genuine desire in your heart, reach out to the one true God and believe that the one true God is there, that He exists, that He is capable of not only doing everything that He has promised to do, but that He is aware of you, that He is the one with the power, and He is the one who is wanting to connect with you, and that is how communication is possible. If you open yourself up to the one true, most high God, there is nothing else that has more authority than Him. There's nothing else that can jump in the line. It's actually a very good prayer to pray. If you're wanting to connect to the one true God, to actually pray and say, I'm just a human being that doesn't have any, we don't have any special abilities to protect ourselves. We're not really capable of really actually protecting ourselves from the spiritual forces of darkness and other things that are out there. But if we go to God and we ask God right from the very beginning, to the one true God that's out there, please protect me and help me connect only to you, and don't let anything else get in the way. Don't let myself get in the way. Don't let my pride get in the way. Communication can be possible, okay? You know, and just to try to help you understand a little bit where I'm coming from, I want to tell you a little bit about my experience. I don't want to go on about myself much. So I'm just going to get to the point. Hopefully this will only take a couple minutes. But I think if you understand my perspective of where I'm coming from, then I think it'll help you a little bit. So, as a kid, I really did get to the point, growing up Christian, I really did get to the point at certain times where I really wanted to connect to the one true God, okay? But, most of everything with church went right over my head. I had a handful of nice experiences at some summer camps for a week or so here and there, as I mentioned, I think before. But, I could be in an auditorium filled with people that were just moved to tears, people that were just wide open in worship, people that were, from all appearances, were like completely connecting to God, and it seemed effortlessly to them. It seemed so easy to them, and yet I would just be standing there and be like, I don't get it. I don't feel anything. I would close my eyes and I would pray into the darkness, and I would pray into the darkness that there was light, and that this light could be aware of me, that it would come to me, and I would get frustrated on so many different levels because there wasn't any, I wasn't getting any, visions. I wasn't hearing some voice. There was no dreams. There was no signs. There was no wonders. There was nothing that I could latch on to, I guess, with maybe my more logical brain or something. I just couldn't, I didn't get it. All these people filled with emotions, and I just felt like I had none, And like I said, it could be frustrated. And even though I had a desire to reach out to the one true God, I also was getting frustrated at the same time because I just couldn't understand how God could so easily seem like he was so easily connecting with all of these other people. And yet there didn't seem to be a connection with me. There didn't seem to be any type of actual tangible connection that I could hold on to. I did get emotional sometimes, but it felt like my emotions were just reaching into the darkness, and I could never tell if anything was actually ever there. Okay? And then that frustration at other times would turn into judgment. I would judge these other people, and I would be like, how can these other people, be the people that God is connecting to, yet he won't connect to me? And I made a lot of assumptions about other people. I made a lot of assumptions about God. I had these expectations of how God would come to a person and what it would mean if God did come to them. And I had all of these wants and all of these desires that I thought God would fulfill for me if he came to me. All these things that I thought I would get out of it. And I had just put so much on God, and I put so much on these other people, and I just didn't get it, I'd ask myself, how can these be God's people? And it did take me a while. It took me many years, even into my early 20s, when I actually started, I think, where God really started to open up to me, because for the first time I really gotten to the end of myself and was willing to actually come to God in a more basic way and just be open to God to start with. Just simply, you don't have to accept God right off the bat. Just being open to God and allowing God to be who and what he is to start with was a good point for me. And I realized that God was willing to come to me, and I realized he came to me in the same way that he comes to everybody. And God doesn't wait until we get our life right before he comes to us. He comes to us with all of our issues, all of our problems, and all of the baggage from our entire life. Okay? And just because we become a Christian does not automatically mean that all of those issues and all of that baggage just magically goes away. That's not how it works. There's been a big scheme in Christianity where people become Christians, and then there's this expectation, oh, now that you've become a Christian, now everything is going to be right and perfect in your life, and you're not going to have your personality flaws anymore. You're not going to have these issues anymore. And that's not how it works. That front is just a fake expectation that certain people put forward because of the expectation and the assumptions that they thought they had to portray. The bottom line is, when we all come to God, we all come to God as broken people. That's how God has designed the whole plan. We come to Christ, who was on the cross. We come to him on the cross. He is being a broken person for him. We are coming to him as a broken person. And by coming to him as a broken person, over time, being with him, he literally raises us from the dead into a new creation. But it takes time, and it's a process. And to even participate in the process, which process of sanctification, it does involve having to just take your expectations and really just setting them to the side. It's not that your expectations are never going to be met. It's not that some of those things can't happen. It's just that if you go into it thinking that they have to happen, that God has to meet you in a certain way, whether it's a voice, it may not work like that. There wasn't a voice, there wasn't a vision, there wasn't some big dream that unfolded that actually made it to where I realized for the first time in my life, in my early 20s, I was actually connecting with God. It was something more to that. It was something in my spirit, and it was a whole sequence of things, okay? I prayed into that darkness for a long time, just hoping that something was there, and there was something about prayer, there was something, even though I couldn't tell if God was there, to pray, there did seem to be a connection, even though I could never seem to put any tangible thing to it. There did seem to be an actual connection to God, even when I was a kid, even when I felt like I wasn't really connecting to God, and I struggled with it, and I really didn't know anything about God. And it has helped me a lot to learn about God. I think that's a key factor. Ultimately, I think that we are all supposed to come to God directly. We do come to God as a group, and I think it's a very good thing. God has designed within the body of Christ, within the bride, certain experiences that we can participate in as a group. There's actually certain things that I've come to understand that only manifest themselves, that only happen as a group, when the whole body is functioning together and every part is doing their part in alignment with Christ, in alignment with the head. That's how things are supposed to work. But ultimately, each one of us is supposed to be directly connected to the head, directly connected to Jesus, and through Jesus, directly connected to God. And if every single member of the body of Christ is directly connected to God in the way that they're supposed to, then the body is going to be able to function the way it's supposed to be functioning. Okay? And I do think that there is a call for us individually to be able to share the information about our connection with God. But ultimately, I don't know how much of this one-on-one direct connection with God can actually be shared. All right? And I don't think we're required to prove it. For the longest time, when I got frustrated at these other individuals who seemed to have such a real connection with God, I would get frustrated because they were saying it was so real, and that they knew that God was real, and that they knew they were connecting with God, yet it was frustrating to me because they could never seem to present anything real. I couldn't understand how something could be real and them not being able to present something to me that could show me that it was real. And it took me a long time to realize something. The reason why one person can't just hand somebody essentially God is because we're not supposed to be getting God from another person. Each person is supposed to go to God directly and get God from God himself. Okay? It is an unhealthy and unreasonable expectation to think that one human being could ever present the fullness of God to another human being. If you want God, then you should go to God and see if you can meet the one true living God for yourself. So I actually don't think it's our responsibility or required of us to be able to prove our connection to God. I think it's a person's responsibility to go and seek out that connection to God from the source, from God himself. And I think if people do that, they're going to get a lot more out of it, and they're going to find a connection that actually matters to them, that actually makes sense to them, and that's actually specifically tailored to the type of connection that would actually work for them. Not everybody comes to God in the same way. There may be different things that you need. Even if I told you my whole story, there may be something that you need when you go to connect with God that God knows, because he knows what's in your heart. And if you go to him, then you can get that. Okay? But if you're waiting on something, if you have this expectation that God has to do something first beyond what he's already doing, then you can easily wait the rest of your life for that and completely forfeit your chance to know him. Okay, so, all right. In conclusion, God has given us so much. God is out there. And if we want to find him, we just have to be willing to look. We have to be willing to get out of our own way. In fact, we actually have to be willing to approach God in his way, on his terms. Knowing God is worth it. It's worth much more than we could ever imagine. You will not know what it's worth until you know him. Dear bride, Proverbs 8:17 ESV. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. P.S. What if the only thing holding you back from knowing that God is real is yourself? Mark 4:23 ESV. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear.